Counterfeit cash is on the rise. Police warn people to be on the lookout for fake £20 notes. There is a warning that counterfeit banknotes are on the rise, and it's partly because many of us are using cash less often.
Which means we're less familiar with how genuine notes look and feel, making counterfeits harder to spot. Businesses say they're the ones taking the hit, as our reporter Sarah May Buchiri explains.
Counterfeit cash is creeping more and more into our wallets, as police say forged banknotes are on the rise, and they're very convincing. Bowling alley owner Fiona says she's now very wary of them, after £200 worth of take-ins in one night were all fake notes.
It wasn't until we took it to the post office and then their machines just chucked it straight out. It just felt like a bit of a slap in the face that somebody had knowingly handed over £200. You know, if it's the odd 20, then you could be like, well, maybe someone didn't know. But when it's £200 in one night, you know, you kind of realise that it was handed over intentionally.
What kind of impact does using a fake note have on businesses like yours?
We've had to purchase machines to scan all the notes with. We've had to speak to all the staff, sort of like really train them on what to look out for. Because they're so good now, we're now having to check and double-check notes to make sure that we're not taking them. So we put it underneath this machine. As you can see, there's the £10 that glows up underneath the machine. We also have this printout. It's got a bit wet behind the bar with the circles of the things that we particularly need to be looking at.
And you do all of this to make sure you're not caught out?
Absolutely, yeah.
But just how easy is it to spot one without a machine? One of these banknotes is fake, but which one? Leicestershire Police say as fewer people now use cash, they may not know how to spot a counterfeit.
So this one's real, these two are fake. You notice that the colour is more prominent on the legitimate note in comparison to the two fake notes. Holograms are slightly different. With a legitimate 20, you'll see the hologram at the bottom here, and when you tilt, the word changes from 20 to pounds. And that's the same on 10s and 5s and 50s. On a fake, most of the ones I've seen, they don't change. If you're given a fake note and you know it is, don't try and use it. Take it to a bank. If you know the person who's given it to you or have information about the person, contact the police. Remember that it's a criminal offence to hold it or pass it, so don't try and do that.
Ultimately, police say it's always wise to check your cash and to never use a fake, as the punishments are all too real. Sarah May Buchiri, BBC News.
Just looking ahead a little later in the programme, we will be speaking to the woman whose signature you can see here. That's Victoria Cleland, who's the Bank of England's chief cashier. She's responsible for making sure banknotes have the latest anti-counterfeit technology, explaining to us a little later on about the future of cash, how it fits in with the world that we now live in.
I know we're going to be talking to her about a very serious issue, but are you curious about how many times she did her signature before, practised her signature before saying that's the one to go on?
I think we should find out.
I think so. So, perhaps you're fortunate enough to have a banknote with you this morning. And if you do, you may well see, well, you will see it if you look closely, the signature of Victoria Cleland in the top left-hand corner. That's it here. She is the Bank of England's chief cashier and is responsible for making sure banknotes have the latest counterfeit technology. We can talk to Victoria now. Hello, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast. You know, before we get into the very serious business of counterfeit notes, and it is serious, can I ask, because I was curious earlier, how many practice signatures did you do before submitting the one that is on our money?
To be honest, I probably lost count. It is such a privilege to be signing the currency on behalf of the country. I did try and make my signature as neat as I could.
Excellent, perfect answer. OK, in terms of counterfeit notes now, there is a problem, isn't there? Because I would say we're moving towards cashless society. So many people use contactless and very rarely use cash these days. How can this be tackled?
So I think the most important thing to remember is that there are some counterfeits out there. There has been an increase, but from an incredibly low base. When we introduced polymer banknotes back in 2016, the key reason for doing so was to introduce lots of exciting security features. And so while it's really sad to hear about the stories that are going on. And we just heard about the bowling alley. Counterfeits can impact individuals, they're impacting small businesses. So the Bank of England, we're keen to stop them, but I do also want to reassure people that it is a tiny fraction of 1% of all notes out there that are counterfeit. So I'd really encourage people to be alert, but absolutely no need for alarm.
I suppose you might be the wrong person to ask this question, but do you think if you had... there are some really good fakes out there. Do you think if you had a fake and you didn't have a genuine note to compare it to, a good fake, you would spot it?
There are a number of security features, and I think your film has just shown one of the ones that's usually my go-to feature. So I would really start by looking here at the bottom of the note, and I've got a £20 note here, and in this foil it will say 20 spelt out. If I tilt it, it moves to pounds, and I think that is something I would really encourage people to do. There are a lot of other features in the note. For example, the monarch is shown in a clear window. The Bank of England notes tend to be really clear, really crisp, really vibrant colours. We've got raised ink across the top here. So there are a number of different features, but yeah, for me, the first go-to is, does the number flip at the bottom of that note?
Victoria, morning to you. It's Charlie here. That's really good practical advice, and thank you for that. I know you said there's a very small proportion of fake notes being used. Is there a pattern as to the places, the environments that fake cash is seen more often than others?
I think it's criminals who are often passing these notes. So some of them will perhaps go to an environment where they think it's very busy or people aren't checking notes. One of the things the Bank of England does is to provide a lot of free education materials. We have something called the banknote checking scheme, which is open to retailers, where we can give them information, and as part of that we can include sort of signs and posters, and I think something like that will start deterring these criminals to start with. But there isn't a particularly clear pattern. To my mind, counterfeiting, it isn't a victimless crime. Some of the key users of cash are amongst the most vulnerable people in some of the more deprived areas, or perhaps the elderly. And anyone using counterfeit cash in those are the individuals that they're catching out. That is why the Bank of England is working very closely with law enforcement to really stop this. We're looking to understand where the counterfeits are coming from. There have been seizures and we're stopping it. But in the meantime, really encourage the public to check the notes, encourage retailers to check the notes.
Victoria Cleland, Chief Cashier at the Bank of England, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.